I was looking at the first email that I have from you about I want to say it's like two years ago maybe,
Hmm.
and I hadn't connected when we had connected via email a little bit ago, and I had looked back at that email. I hadn't put two and two together that you said in the email I'm doing about 3K per month, up to 5K per month sometimes, and I want to triple. You specifically said triple, and here we are a year or two later, and you're at about
Wow.
15K, like exactly tripled what you were doing before.
I
So
can't
cool.
believe that. I can't, I didn't even remember saying that to you. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Wow. I should really forward that to Rob and Kira. I'll make them so happy.
totally.
Uh,
That's so amazing.
yeah.
I won a
Yeah, it's
triple.
been
Here I am a year later. I have tripled.
amazing. Yeah, well, now I just have to wish for world peace, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so you from what we had discussed, you did it mostly through LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Although once I put up my new website, that's when the machine started exploding.
Totally.
So it was probably a combination.
Absolutely. Kind of like the you were maybe getting some people coming in from LinkedIn, but then once sort of the new conversion asset was in place, it really started turning it into sales and ongoing clients for you.
Yeah, it was not only steadier the flow of leads, but they were better leads.
Yeah.
So I think all the work I had done on LinkedIn was important because I had built up my authority on LinkedIn, and people I was driving a lot of people to my profile and people were following my content, and then once I had that really strong asset in place like you said, that converted a lot of quality leads.
Absolutely. And how long ago did you put that website up?
So I think it was a year ago.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah, a little more than a year ago.
awesome.
Yeah.
And for anyone watching this, I came across Michael's website um, about 3 months ago when I was doing a list of top writer websites, and I had already had 10 finalized, and then I came across her site and I was like, this is better than every single one on my list, like
I didn't
straight
know
up to the
that.
top of the list. Yeah. Uh, and it really is fantastic, and I'll put a little link under the video to go check out her website and some of the others on that list. But you said you put that up a year ago, and that's kind of it, was it as dramatic as like doubling your income within a month or two once the website went up, or was it a little more like that started to move the needle in an upwards direction, and then a few months later you noticed, oh my gosh, like I'm doing double, and then 6 months later triple, or kind of how did that look?
So it definitely doubled my leads at least, if not tripled or quadrupled them.
Okay,
But in terms of income, that took longer mostly because it took me longer to raise my rates.
okay, that makes sense.
So I had a lot of work. I was booked out, but I was stupid enough to not raise my rates fast enough.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah, one thing I feel like we've sort of entered this season in copywriting, and writing in particular, where the demand is so high that you have a lot of newer copywriters who aren't actually good yet who can charge higher rates, and so I see some copywriters getting into this mindset of rate chasing, and they don't have the demand. They're not raising rates because of demand, but then on the flip side, when you have the demand coming in, when your schedule is full and you have people trying to get those extra hours, it's a no-brainer to just bump your rates because you can fill it.
Yeah.
So it
And
sounds like
you have to do it fast, especially if you're booked out for 3 months, then
totally,
you need to raise your rates like yesterday because it affects your income for so many weeks going forward.
absolutely. It's like it buffers it out for the next few months. So what did that when you say you raised your rates, how much of that was you saying to current or well, actually, let me ask a previous question first. What percentage of your clients are one-off projects versus like ongoing stuff that, you'll work with them for 3 months plus?
Well, A lot of my one-off projects end up being 3 months plus.
Okay.
Um,
Sure, sure.
and I typically do take on big projects, and very
Totally.
often they do stretch. But having said that, I have one retainer client
Okay.
who I love, who I've been with for a year and a half, who takes up about 40% of my working hours, which is
Okay.
a lot.
Absolutely.
And
And did they start at that, or was that something where they started a small percentage and you sort of upsold them over time? How did that kind of look?
So I actually started working with them when I was still working through an agency as a subcontractor of an agency.
Okay.
And I worked directly with the stakeholders at this company. The agency gave me that leeway, and they liked my work a lot. And eventually they ended their contract with the agency, and they asked the agency if it would be okay if they continued working with me. And
Totally.
I have a very good relationship with this agency, and they kind of it was a mutual split for them. And my colleague at the agency said go ahead, take it. So I had worked for them on some projects through the agency. They got a taste of my work and style, and then we started off small with a few hours a week, and then that kind of grew. And I do like an hourly based retainer for them
Okay.
because I do so many different kinds of work. So while I typically do not recommend charging hourly, in
Sure.
some cases it makes sense.
Totally.
So the fact that I have this retainer client also put me in a position of strength because I only had to fill up about 60%. So it allowed me to raise my rates with more confidence and less concern about feast or famine situation.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're anything like me, having one or two clients making up 40, 50, 60% of your income, it's a huge stress relief. Because it's like even like I remember 2 years ago I had no retainer clients and I was doing between 15 to 20K per month in all one-off projects. And
Wow.
it was even though I had made 15 plus income for the last 4 or 5 consecutive months, it was still stressful because you don't necessarily know that the next month you're going to have any new projects. Like you start from ground zero every single month. So having those retainer clients is huge. If
Yeah.
nothing else for your peace of mind.
Yeah, and you have to be careful because you have to really love the company,
Hmm.
love the work, and not allow yourself to get to a point where you're taking orders and you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing as a copywriter.
Yeah.
Like what I found sometimes is what ended up happening is I would do project management type of stuff just because I'm a very responsible person. So I ended up kind of moving a big project through, and at some point I realized like, hey, I don't want to be doing that. Yes, I'm billing for this time, and yes, I'm getting paid well, but this is not how I want to be spending my time. This is not improving my skills. So actually what I'm doing now is my project manager has joined me in working with this retainer client, so she's doing a lot of the project management stuff, so it's like a win-win situation. I don't have to spend my time on that, and the client still gets that service. So what I'm really trying to build out a little bit is this micro agency. I'd love, and so I started with my project manager, and I have a few associate copywriters who I sometimes subcontract to. And my vision for that is to allow me to have the steady income without having to work every single month, the maximum capacity.
Totally. I'm literally trying to do the exact same thing right now. It's, yeah, it's difficult. For me, the biggest bottleneck is finding associate copywriters that I can quality control. Um, it's such a difficult skill to train. And I've tried it. I've tried it as a contractor. I've tried it as more of an employer. I've tried it as a just like an educator, trainer, mentor, every available thing. It's one of the hardest skill sets to train for, especially when you're talking about at the level of like you putting your name on it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like if you have the right people there, you're 90% of the way there. But that's a great objective. Giving yourself as a service provider, it's hard to sort of be in a situation where you can make more without working more.
Right. And I agree with you that finding the right people is the hardest part. I've also come to terms with the fact that when I subcontract, I cannot offer more than 30% of the project
Mm,
or whatever portion of the project I'm subcontracting out, because I end up improving the copy and working on it a lot myself. And I've
yeah,
accepted that. So that has allowed me to do it in a more profitable way.
totally.
And that's important to know, because in my mind, when I first subcontracted, I was like, well, they're going to be doing most of the job. I'll just have to do some editing at the end, right?
Yeah,
And so you give them like 60, 70% because, like, right, they're doing the job, and then it's like,
not
no.
not quite. Yep. Yeah, that's real. So moving on more to LinkedIn. Um, Actually, wait, I have one more question about the improving your rates. So did the increasing your rates just look like you started only accepting new gigs at a higher rate, or did you have a process of telling existing clients, "Hey, I'm going to be raising my rates"? Uh, and if so, how did you go about that?
So I didn't really have that process because, aside from this one retainer client, most of my projects are one-off projects. And what happens is that my clients come back to me. My specialty is website copy.
Okay,
So almost all my clients, I don't really accept projects that don't have a website copy component.
yeah,
And a website is not something you repeat very often. So what ends up happening is that my clients will come to me for smaller projects afterwards,
okay,
brochure, a bio, trade show banner, things like that, or an email sequence. And I'll do that for them as an add-on, even though I would not do those smaller projects
for a new
for other
client.
clients.
Sure.
So I don't really have set rates for those kinds of things. It really, that I quote each project on its own. The the set prices I have on my website for my core packages, so those I really just raised, like literally as simple as going into my website editor and changing the numbers. I did make some of the packages a little bit more robust, or kind of polished some of the deliverables I was already creating, and just took them to the next level by making them a design deliverable, or just rounding it out a little bit more, because I do so much extensive research that I was giving a lot without even realizing the value that I was giving.
Absolutely.
So that's really what it looked like. I raised my prices. I just raised them. I'm trying to think. There was one other thing I was going to say about that. Oh, and I created an entry level package. So I have what I call the website facelift, which is like a website audit, but on steroids. It's like
Okay.
a higher level, and it includes some copy polishing and actual copy improvement.
Okay.
So that's the package now for businesses that cannot afford my complete website copy rates.
Totally. And it sort of functions like your minimum lowest priced engagement type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I do offer consultations. So that's like for very, very low, right?
Okay.
But this does allow them to have like a meteor taste of my expertise without spending thousands.
Absolutely. Very cool. So moving on to LinkedIn now. What you mentioned that even before you redid the website, the sort of kickstarted thing, you had already been developing a following on LinkedIn. And I know when I had checked out your profile, there was you pretty much every post you wrote was getting 50 plus likes, lots of comments on the low end, and then on the high end, get several hundred on some. Um, that sort of consistency is what demonstrates that you've built a real following. How long of a process was it to build that following from even before the website to now, and sort of what did you do to build it?
Yeah, so I think I started on LinkedIn about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And I actually started out by doing the 30DS, 30 Day Social program.
Okay.
which I highly recommend. It's a program for anyone who's new to LinkedIn. And for 30 days, you basically post for 30 days straight. And each day you get these email prompts that give you guidance on a kind of post, that like inspiration for what to post that day,
Okay.
different styles, different formats, what works, what doesn't work on LinkedIn. So it's like a primer for LinkedIn newbies. And it
Very
was
cool.
hugely helpful. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a fee now. When I took it, it was free. If there's a fee, do it anyway. It was a really great introduction to LinkedIn, and there's hashtag 30DS. So anyone who's doing it, everyone on LinkedIn is super welcoming, and yay for you, right? You're coming on LinkedIn, so you kind of get this nice welcome, and that's how I started. And almost as soon as I started, I realized, wow, I'm really enjoying this. It was almost like, it sounds funny, but my initial posting on LinkedIn wasn't even so strategic. It wasn't like, I want to generate leads, post on LinkedIn. It was almost like kind of organic. I started on a whim with this program, and then I was just enjoying it. I was enjoying the networking. I was enjoying the chance to share thoughts and share what I know about copywriting and marketing. I was enjoying the platform,
Yeah.
and then it was only a couple months in that I realized, wow, this is a really powerful lead generating tool. So I would say that I was pretty consistent for the first 6 months to a year in posting 2 to 3 times a week. I think that consistency was important.
Absolutely.
And I worked hard on my posts. I would devote an hour or two every Sunday for the posts for that week,
Okay.
and really tried hard to deliver a lot of value, to pack it in, start with a very compelling hook that you had to click, and just give a lot of solid value. And I think actually the years I worked for several years as a journalist and a magazine,
Mhm.
published many, many feature articles, and the buzzword there was always word count, right? So like you got to keep it under 3,200 words. You got to keep it under 2,300 words. And I was always like slashing, and I kind of like learned how to use a scalpel on articles and copy in general, which is very helpful on LinkedIn when you have this 1,300 character
Yep.
limit. So I really tried to create tight, lean, mean posts that packed a lot of value. And it really just happened on its own. Like, I did not reach out. I always tell people I do not do any outbound marketing on LinkedIn. If someone starts a conversation with me, I definitely continue it, but I don't intentionally begin conversations on my own.
And
I rarely even initiate the invite requests. I just get a lot coming in from my content.
mhm. Yeah, that was one thing I noticed when I had first sort of sauntered in around the same time and was experimenting with some posts. Like, if you write a couple posts that get a lot of traction, you just get flooded with connection requests. And many of them kind of come with conversations, but a lot of them don't. Uh, and no, like you said, no outbound required. You're posting content and you get a lot of people. And do you actively like accept all the connection requests that come to you, or do you filter them in a certain way, or do you just sort of let them hang around as followers? Kind of how do you approach that?
Yeah, so my approach to that has evolved over time. At the
Yeah.
beginning, I just wanted numbers, so I was pretty much accepting everyone.
Hmm.
I've now become a lot more selective. So if you don't have a headshot, or if you have a really weird headshot, or if your loved one, romantic partner, pet, or otherwise other person is in the picture, I probably will reject that
Yeah.
from the outset. If your headline does not communicate what you do in any kind of coherent way, right, that's another no-no.
Yeah.
And if you are completely not in my industry, like not even close, and you don't send any kind of personalized connection requests, that's also a big red flag for me.
Totally.
So what I'm realizing is that numbers are nice, but you really need a quality network. You want everyone in your network to be helping you in some way and to be engaging with you in some way. And if they're not relevant, if your industry is not relevant to you, they're likely not going to engage in your posts as much. And so I've really just become a lot more selective. There's another thing that I look for. I look for like Lion, that's a big turnoff, right? So like LinkedIn, what does it stand for? LinkedIn Open Networker.
Mm.
That basically means if you get someone who has Lion in their headline, that means that they accept all connection requests,
Oh, okay.
right? So that's a no-no for me. And I've also become very weary of people who talk about like lead generation machines or getting you leads, and website designers,
Mm. So
because
spam
I
you?
find myself getting spammed.
Yeah,
Yeah. So become careful about that.
totally. That makes a lot of sense. And do you how do you use your profile in terms of where do you direct them to your website? Do you send them straight to the homepage? Do you kind of have like a unique CTA? Has that approach changed over time? And have you noticed any specific results from that?
So I think originally I was directing people to contact me. So I think my email address was in my LinkedIn profile summary.
Okay.
And now I'm sending people to my website. I really
Okay.
want them to go through my website first, get a sense of my style, the work that I've done, see my packages, see my rates.
Yeah.
I don't like to waste anyone's time, and then fill out the form on my site and reach out that way. So I have that in my summary, and also in the background banner is my URL in big.
Okay.
And I recommend that to anyone who is happy with their website and wants their leads browsing their site. Like, put that in your banner.
Okay.
Don't just leave it in your summary.
Okay. So for the timeline, can you sort of just give me like a bullet point rundown of what your timeline on LinkedIn looked like and sort of was like for the first half month, say, or not half month, half year that you were on it? Was it just sort of plodding along posting and then at sort of a certain point you started seeing some leads trickle in and then, like kind of what did that look like? Where did the website fit into that? And then kind of from the website forward, how did sort of the scale look like?
Yeah, so I started posting on LinkedIn about a year and a half ago.
Hmm.
So there were about 6 months there that I had this awful one-page website that served a purpose, but it was so embarrassing. So that those were like the 6 initial months on LinkedIn. And I have to say that I gained traction on LinkedIn pretty quickly, mostly because I think at the time there were so few good content creators. So LinkedIn was, it was almost like this like magical time
And
where if you
yeah.
got in early adopters, I guess you would say, right?
And the organic reach, I think they dialed it, like they turned it way up and it got everyone starting to come back to the platform, and I think they've dialed it down since then as well.
Absolutely. There's no question. I mean, there was a point where I was getting like minimum of 150 likes on every single post. And today when I have much more of an engaged following, I'm getting like 70, maybe 100 like in a good post, or
Hmm.
115. So I'm definitely seeing that it's much harder, the getting that reach on LinkedIn. And I warn people about that. Like, you're not going to have those instant results. It's going to take time and it's going to take more effort. I still find it's worthwhile. Almost every single time I post on LinkedIn, I have like 2 or 3 messages in my LinkedIn inbox.
Mm.
Some of which are leads, some of our other opportunities. But I almost see that direct connection like after every post.
Hmm.
Um, so it happened pretty quickly for me. So during those 6 months, I would say after 3 months, the leads already started coming.
Okay.
Um, I would not say they were terribly high quality, all of them. Definitely a good couple ones there. I mean, I think I shared this at TCC IRL, that at one point I was like 90% of my clients, like for the past 6 months, had been from LinkedIn
Mm.
or referrals from clients who came to me through LinkedIn.
Okay.
So that's a huge percentage.
Yeah.
And so then so there was the 6 months of that posting, and I would say I was getting like 2, 3 leads a week.
Okay.
And then I went ahead with this new website in April 2018, and that just exploded things. So there was a point where I was literally getting, after that, I'd say 2 or 3 quality leads a day.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a lot. And then I raised my rates, which helped slow things down a little bit.
Sure.
A couple months ago, I had the same problem. I was booked out for a while, and I was still getting tons of leads through my website, to the point where I actually just stopped posting on LinkedIn for 6 weeks because I could not keep up with responding to the inquiries,
Yeah.
and it didn't make sense for me. I needed some quiet. So I just stopped posting on LinkedIn. And of course, the algorithm penalizes you terribly when you take a vacation from LinkedIn. So you come back and you're like, what happened to my engagements? Um, but I see it almost as as a funnel that you can turn on and off like that, um, which is pretty convenient.
Totally. That's amazing. And at this point, would you say, are you still in that 90% LinkedIn range? Has or is that have new channels entered in, or where are you kind of at on that spectrum?
Yeah, pretty. I wouldn't probably 80% at this point. I have a lot of repeat clients
Okay.
at this point. So I'm working with a lot of the same clients and different projects, or clients who have like sister companies. So it's
Ah,
kind of the same, the same contact but
yeah.
different brands. Um, I've also slowed down. I don't post on LinkedIn nearly as consistently. A lot of my posting on LinkedIn right now is because I enjoy it. Like I don't even necessarily need it right now in my business, but
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I enjoy connecting with other people. I enjoy sharing knowledge. And so I would say I'm down to like maybe 2 posts a week. I've actually moved to video recently, which was like exciting for me. I put up my first LinkedIn video
Oh, awesome.
last week. Yeah.
Very fun.
And the part of that was the frustration with the algorithm lately.
Mm.
It's just been tough, and text only posts have not been favored by the algorithm. So I decided on a whim to go ahead and try video, and it was not the most professional video. I didn't even do captions, which I should have, and it still got amazing reach. So I think with LinkedIn, you really have to be up on the latest, try new things, see what's working, see what's not, track your posts, track engagement, follow LinkedIn pros, like follow the people who are like who spend their day figuring out LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Some of those people, I
Um,
don't even like what do you do? Like
I
you're
know.
literally
I
like
know.
every 30 minutes there's a post from you on LinkedIn. There's no way you're doing any other work.
I know. I know.
Uh,
Like, when do you do client work? It's a
yeah.
really good question. Or like, even in terms of focus, like if I was on LinkedIn every 30 minutes, I would get nothing done,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
if I kept doing that break thing. But there are some people who actually have made LinkedIn a business, right? So they do LinkedIn consultations, LinkedIn profiles. LinkedIn is just what drives their whole business. And it's worth finding those people. John Aspirian is a copywriter who I tell anyone who wants to get serious on LinkedIn to follow.
Okay.
Not only is he incredibly helpful and just so nice, but he posts really valuable tips about LinkedIn. So
Awesome.
he's like a must follow.
Very cool. And when it comes just something to mention for anyone watching, obviously engagement is going to be semi-linked to leads. But I mentioned in sort of the post leading up to this video that I know several different copywriters earning pretty sizable full-time income solely through LinkedIn leads. And one of the other individuals gets far less engagement than you do on your posts, but it's still enough to drive full-time leads. And even kind of what you've been saying about how the organic reach has gone down, but even still, you're booked out. And so, as much as it is something to keep in mind for people considering LinkedIn as sort of the channel they pursue, that organic reach could potentially drop in the future. I think it's also worth noting that you don't actually have to be getting 50, 60, 70 likes per post. You don't have to get to that threshold to start seeing like a real tangible influx of leads through LinkedIn. Just like with my SEO post, I have a little graph, and you know at this point I'm way up here on the traffic end, but when I was way down here, it was already powering my business. And so it sounds like, even, you could probably be getting a third of the engagement you're getting now, and it would probably still keep you booked. Would you say
Yeah.
that's about accurate?
Yes, absolutely. I turned out a lot of leads. So, you could definitely book out with a few posts a month, and you don't have to be getting that level of engagement. And not just that, but something that's been really surprising to me is clients who come to me and say, I've been following you on LinkedIn for the past year.
Oh
They
wow.
not once engaged with my posts, not a like, not a comment. And they're what I call the silent lurkers of LinkedIn. And they really exist and they are there watching you. So even if you look at your numbers and you start feeling depressed, don't, because there are people out there, and if you're putting out high value content, they're noticing.
Absolutely. So true. Awesome. So I think kind of in terms of takeaways for new people who are wanting to dive into LinkedIn, you mentioned the 30 days social. Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
And that's I'll grab a link from you so I can send it to people. And then it's posting consistently. It's following some of the people you mentioned. I'll list those as well, who give great advice and are happy to engage with people. I would imagine it's also being real intentional about engaging with anyone who engages with you.
Yeah.
And then consistency over time, just like with any leads channel. Is there anything on top of that that you want to add?
Yeah. So first of all, obviously engage with anyone who engages on your post, which means like reply to every comment of anyone who comments on your post. Take the time to do that, even if it's just a thank you, because that will inspire more engagement on your post.
Yep.
The first hour after your post is critical. So depending on how many views you get during that hour, the
Mm,
algorithm will spread your post further. So you
absolutely.
want to be monitoring your post during that hour, responding to comments to up the comment number and to increase engagement. If you're a part of an engagement pod, which is where people post link to their posts, like you can have a group in the messages,
Mm,
and you post link to your post and say, hey, I'm just letting you know that I posted, if you check it out, and if you want to engage. So I'm part of a few pods like that, and those can be helpful for people who anyway want to see your post. So
yes.
I don't see it as like artificial boosting, because these people are interested in engaging with your posts. That can be very helpful. I think the quality network piece is also very important. You want the right people seeing your content.
Mm,
So accept the right people and also seek out the right people. When I say seek out the right people, when you scroll through your feed for 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, like as soon as you see great content, follow the person and send a personalized connection request.
mm,
So like one by one, you start building a quality network of intelligent content creators who are likely getting engagement from similarly intelligent business people, entrepreneurs, and colleagues. So it's important to be intentional about who you include in your network, and like you said, who, not just like to engage back with those who engage with you, but also which posts are you engaging with.
mm.
People notice that also. So if there's a post that's not very relevant to your industry or may not reflect so well on your brand, think twice before commenting.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the pods. I get I get the feeling it's sort of similar to like I'm part of like a Slack group where we promote each other's content when new content comes out. So we're kind of all in the same industry, similar, overlapping audiences. So when someone posts something, we'll all go in and like, share, retweet, whatever. Sounds like it functions somewhat similar to that. Is what is a pod, and how would people join one or create one?
Yeah, it definitely functions similarly. The only difference is that it's actually on the LinkedIn platform.
Okay.
So you go into the messages tab, and let's say you're a few copywriters, you'd like to support each other's content. So you create a group, you invite anyone you want to that group, and that
Okay.
creates a group within the messages. And then every time you post, you click those three buttons in the top right of the post, and you choose copy link to post. And then you paste that link in the group message.
Okay. And then they just go
And
in and engage with it.
Yeah,
Perfect. Awesome. Super simple. Uh, and you're all sort of leveraging each other. Honestly, with any sort of content marketing, with any sort of audience building, I see it time and time again. People who make it up into the top, anyone you follow, hardly any of them got there on their own. They all got often they all got there with a group. And so you see some of these people who you know you've everyone in the industry has heard their names, and they're all part of a little group, and a lot of them, like I know several, even Michael Hyatt was one of the first people to really be pushing the concept of platform. um, and I've seen so many people who I follow who all were in his little Facebook group and all just sort of rode up to the top together. And so don't be afraid to collaborate, don't be afraid to find other people who are ambitious and who also, even if they're not right now, don't have huge followings, and you guys just leverage to the top. Which it sounds like, you know, even though it sounds like, a lot of the benefit that you got from LinkedIn, it comes from your consistency and your own initiative, but I'm sure partnering with other people helps move the needle a bit.
absolutely, definitely. But the caveat is that you have to partner with the right people. I was actually part of an engagement pod. I was invited to be part of this pod where much of the content was either not relevant to my industry or to my ideal clients,
Sure.
like really not relevant, or it was just not good content.
Yeah.
And at some point, I told the pod moderators, like, because you are expected if you're in a pod to engage as much as you can with the content.
Yeah.
And I was honest with them. I said, people look at what I follow and what I engage with, and it's just not consistent with my brand. It's not, I don't want to be driving people to content that I don't consider valuable.
Hmm.
So I'm only going to engage with content that is high value.
Yep.
And so I learned my lesson from that. Eventually, they got frustrated with me and asked me to leave because I wasn't engaging enough. And the pods that I'm part of now are comprised of people who really put out great content.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, you could sort of say spam networks are a dime a dozen, but finding the
Right.
real quality partnership groups that probably take some trial and error, take some valiant attempts that don't go anywhere, but when you find it, it can be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing I would say about LinkedIn is when you create content, be strategic. So you want to envision your ideal client, like literally in front of you.
Okay.
What do they want to hear about? What's important to them? How can you help them? What should be your focus? So you can put out all kinds of interesting content on LinkedIn, but if you're there to generate leads for your business, you really want to be thinking of that client.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about this and lay out some
Sure.
tips for LinkedIn for my readers. It's super awesome stuff. And
This was fun.
honestly, I'm so thrilled uh, that LinkedIn is the viable channel it is today, because I've always been an SEO evangelist, and the reality of SEO is it requires so many non-transferable skills that just like you have to learn to be good at SEO, and they don't translate to anything else. And you have to spend a lot of time learning and mastering them. Whereas when I look at LinkedIn, it's like almost any skill you're going to develop to succeed with LinkedIn is going to be very transferable. It's going to benefit you. The networking aspect, even if for some reason you never succeed in building it into the leads channel you want it to be, there's still going to be so many secondary benefits of networking and being on LinkedIn. It's kind of it's a no lose channel. Um, and
Absolutely.
and hopefully, I'm also really optimistic that LinkedIn's not going to take the Facebook direction of just completely gutting organic reach. Because I don't think, unlike Facebook, LinkedIn makes most of its income from being a recruiting platform. And so
That's true.
it's conducive to the business model to have solid organic engagement and reach. Whereas with Facebook, organic reach is almost a direct competitor of how they make their money in sort of direct to user advertising. So I'm optimistic, and I love hearing stories like yours of it succeeding as well as it has, and hopefully it remains a solid channel for us copywriters for years to come.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. This is great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, such a pleasure. And I I don't want to take. Can you pronounce your full name for me? I don't want to butcher it.
We can do like just another discussion all about my name and the challenges I've had in my business with that name.
I can
I
only
told my
imagine.
husband the other day, I'm like, we're just shortening it to Isaac. That's it. Like, I had enough of this. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But anyway, my first name is Michal. Michal is
Michal. Oh,
actually,
okay.
yeah, it's hard to pronounce. I've been called Michelle, Michal, Michael. I've been called Michael countless times, which is also fine.
Which is what I did at the beginning of the video. I apologize.
Yeah, so it's Michal. She was actually, people wonder about the name. She was the biblical David's wife. My husband happens to be David, which is kind of cute
Oh, very cool.
and sweet. So it's Michal, and my last name is Eisikowitz. But if
Okay.
you want to do Isaac, that's also good. Yeah, it's a mouthful, but at least it's memorable, right?
Absolutely. And your website is it's your name.com, correct?
Exactly.
Okay,
Or
perfect.
getperfectcopy.com.
Oh, there's a
Yeah.
domain.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Little 301 redirect there.
Yeah.
That's cool. Getperfectcoffee.com.
Yeah. From this perfectionist. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Michal. Did I pronounce
wow,
that
you
right?
got it.
Hey! Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and look forward to. I'm gonna be trying to get on LinkedIn more as well, and look forward to reading more of your content and seeing you on the network.
Yeah, same here. That'd be awesome. All right. Thanks so much.